if you are a Westminster Academy person, that Casey Hiddle is delicious. She is so smart and like unlike me, she's just very kind and you will love her. Um, Number two, we're having a memorial for my daughter in October, and the officiant is going to be Katie Rosenson. And she's sending me pictures and, Presbyterian. I don't even know what the word is. Like, thing. What's it called? Yeah, the stall. Yeah. And she kept going, what kind of stall should I wear? I should have just called the guy. And I'm like, I don't even know what a stall is. Um, Katie is going to officiate Meg's memorial. So thank you for turning her into a Presbyterian minister. Okay, I'll tell her. She's so adorable. My stall. What stall shall I wear? Um, okay. So there are two things I would love to at least kind of get mostly through. And that's volume one. I want to talk about Walton and I want to talk about Victor Frankenstein. So, for clarity, just in case you haven't started reading yet, Victor is Frankenstein. The creature doesn't have a name. In pop culture, we've named the creature Frankenstein, which totally messes with students' heads when they start, because Frankenstein is the creator. So, if we begin volume one, there are a couple of things we have to work through. And one of the things that people struggle with when they actually have to read Frankenstein as opposed to watch a movie is Walton is the narrator. He's controlling the entire narrative. And you have to keep that in your head because we're only getting the story through him primarily. Now, that said, here's your literature schooling. You are going to get the story of Victor Frankenstein and the story of the creature. But in literature, we call that a focalized narrative, which means we're getting, I'm not even, it's fine. Which means it feels like they're telling their own story, but it's still coming from Walton. Does that make sense? Like you feel like you're in their heads, but you always have to remember who is giving you this information. Because at the beginning, and we're going to look at it a little bit, Walton picks Victor up out of the ice, right? And what he tells you really quickly is, I'm going to write down everything he says and give it to you. Sometimes I'm going to write it that day, but other times I'm just going to write it a little later. So there's so much there. Do you get what I mean? And we kind of have to figure out what purpose that serves us and how reliable a narrator he is. And then that's going to become even more complicated by some of those things we talked about last time, like, is Walton Victor's doppelganger? Is he his double in some way? Why the relationship they have is weird. Maybe. I'm not quite sure. We'll see. So when we begin the text, the other thing I want you to decide by the time we're done is, do we have a hero? You want a hero. How many of you always want a hero in a story? Oh no. Well, that's going to be the real problem because in many ways, Walton is the one telling the story. Is he the hero? And if so, how does that work with, well, this is Frankenstein? Because if you get even partway through Frankenstein or Victor's story, most people don't like him very much. So who is the hero? And we're not going to know, and there might not be one, and so sorry. That's not even postmodern. Okay. If you have been reading, let's just jot a few things down. What do you make of Walton? Who is he? Let's start there. Who is he? What's he doing? Had unrealistic pictures of what they might discover. That's right. But that lack of realism is what over that. Ooh. Oh, this is going to become important. Yeah, good. So we have this narrator, Walton, who is an explorer. And what he's trying to accomplish is something no one has ever accomplished before, right? By getting to the North Pole. And, what's motivating him? Is that a hard question? Why is he doing it? This is all going to matter. Very good. What? Than say 70 degrees or whatever latitude, also got eternal sunshine. They had this, they didn't know about the silver bags. They thought the sun got them all the time. And he's wrong. So this is important because you're exactly right. He talks about this potential discovery in these very sort of poetic terms. Yes, that, oh, it's going to be the land of light and it's going to be perfect, which immediately puts us where? That's right, paradise. Now, why else does he want? Student. Thank you so much. Very good. This is huge because that's a really good analogy, a failed musician. Okay, so does it ever go away, whatever that is? No, it does not. And this is significant. He really wanted to be a poet. And what do they do? Like for a living? Right, right? They write stories. Oh, so we have to keep all of that in mind. The other thing, and this is crucial, there's one other big reason he's doing this. What is it? What is it? What was your guess? Okay, very good. That's a good guess. Is it? Oh, okay. It is a big motivator. Very good. Yes, and it's so important. What he says is, Oh my God, I'll be famous. Yes. And everyone is going to love me. But more, but then as a caveat, look what I can do for humanity. But that's like third for him. And part of the reason okay, you have to decide this. Part of the reason he wants to do something for humanity is what? In other words, is he just this generous, magnanimous human lover? Yes. So I don't know about Walton. And you're saying all the right things. What becomes really complicated is, well, you know, since the early 19th century, he's the one who gave us the story. So, how much of it is Walton and how much of it is actually Frankenstein and the creature? Yeah. Yes. Why is that? Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, you missed this. So, this novel falls into what we call the British Romantic tradition. And there are two things about those dates. Because if you read 19th century and even 20th century literature, you will get that over and over and over again. A lot of times in the 19th century, because Poe, right? Poe never tells you where we really are. What do you mean? No, that's right. Now say more words. That's right. So often in romantic literature, part of what romantic literature um, probably its defining characteristic is ambiguity. Like, I'm not going to set this in a specific date in time. Why? Exactly. 100%. That they don't want to put something in a specific place or a specific time because it's timeless, which is frustrating if you want details. But we know, we're in the 18th century and we've already had at least 300 years of exploration. And so Walton sees himself as doing something magnificent. And this is going to matter because he's the storyteller. So we also, and I noted this last time, this is also, sorry, hold on, an epistolary novel. An epistolary novel is a novel through letters because actually he's writing letters and slash a journal this whole time of the experience. So it's also in many ways retrospective. Everything's already happened. And now it's up to us as readers to figure out exactly what did happen. And the epistolary novel in British literature is supposed to be this very lofty way of communicating to readers through the beautiful art of letters. Who's he writing to? His sister. And he tells you a lot about himself in these letters. So let's just look at a couple of things so that you can make, some decisions. He's writing to Mrs. Seville. Her name is Margaret. And later we find out that her initials are MW. I'm sorry, MS. Mary Shelley. Thank you very much. There you go. It's like the whole thing's a quiz. Very good. So, if ultimately our goal is to figure out what is this book actually about, part of that is Mary Shelley. She's creating. She's the creator. And in many ways, she kind of has to fight for that legitimacy because, you know, her husband's Percy Bysshe Shelley, and one of her besties is Lord Byron. And when you begin the book and you get the preface, if you get the original preface, it's written by Shelley. And his hands are all over this novel. But if you read the updated preface, she goes, "This is my thing. This is my baby. I'm the one who did this." But in the 19th century, women weren't supposed to be doing this, especially writing about things that are highly intellectual, which mostly people don't think Frankenstein is, yes? But it is. And they're also not supposed to write about dark things because, of course, then they'll go crazy. They'll be mad. And remember, Mary Shelley is the child of two of the most highly intellectual, educated people, you know, of the late 18th and 19th centuries. Okay, so let's get into the business. So the novel begins with this guy, Walton, which I will admit, students also come to class thinking they've read Frankenstein, and they have not. And I can tell on the second day because they're utterly disappointed, sometimes mad, because blah, blah, blah. You've got all of these letters before you get into anything good. And then I do this. There's a lot of good stuff here. So Walton is writing to his sister in the first letter, December 11th, 17. You will read, dear Margaret, you will rejoice to hear that no disaster has accompanied the commencement of an enterprise which you have regarded with such evil forebodings. That's the first sentence of the actual text. Why would the sister think or feel evil forebodings? What's he trying to do? Discover something that's never been discovered before. Why would she have evil forebodings? It's scary and it's dangerous. And P.S., he's not really a sailor, but he has a bunch of money and an idea. And so even in sentence one, he's setting himself up as, hey, yeah, I know you were nervous, but I've got this. And then he starts, and I want to suggest or just use it to validate some of the things you all have said. He is, you know, figuring out how he's going to put together a boat and a crew because, you know, he's not a sailor. My daydreams become more fervent and vivid. I try in vain to be persuaded that the pole, North Pole, the seat of frost and desolation, it ever presents itself to my imagination as the region of beauty and delight. the region of beauty and delight. There, Margaret, the sun is ever visible. There, snow and frost are banished. And sailing over a calm sea, we may be wafted to a land surpassing in wonders and in beauty every region hitherto discovered on the habitable globe. Blah, blah, blah. Why do students immediately not like this? What? Say it again. Yes, too many words. This is what I've taught many of you about Poe, because everybody also thinks they've read Poe. I love Poe. And then they read Poe and go, oh my gosh, talk, 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 talk. And this is really important because this is a book with really important storytellers. He's writing to his sister, and this is what we always do, and it's a mistake. We go, oh, but it's the 18th century. Humans walked around talking like that. No, they didn't. People who present themselves in some ways might talk about this. But look, he's talking about going to the North Pole. And for him, it's a dream and a vision. And it sounds delightful, yes? But, God, talky, talky, talk. And the sentencing is brilliant. There, snow and frost are banished, and sailing over a calm sea, we may be wafted to a land surpassing in wonders and in beauty every region. What may not be expected in a country of eternal, I may there discover the wondrous power which attracts the needle, and may regulate 1,000 celestial observations that require only this voyage to render their seeming eccentricities consistent forever. I shall satiate my ardent curiosity with the sight of a part of the world never before visited. Don't hang around with people that just go, I'll be satiated after this. Because I'm suspicious. Do you get what I mean? And that's partly because I read for a living, right? And no, this isn't how people really talk. So this is going to become important. Good. And it's also the way people talk if they want what from you. Yes. Look at me. I'm so articulate and so poetic. Here's why this is going to matter. Because everything you learn about Frankenstein and the creature is going to be funneled through this guy who is a failed poet, has a lot of money, and has a lot of pride in himself. What he's telling his sister, and notice he doesn't ask her any questions about herself or anything like, hey, how's it going? What's going on at home? Nothing like that. All of this beauty is sufficient to conquer all fear of danger and death, and to induce me to commence this laborious voyage with the joy a child feels when he embarks in a little boat with his holiday mates. You can't now, so he's already told you. You cannot contest the inestimable benefit which I shall confer on all mankind to the last generation by discovering a passage near the pole to these countries. Okay. He ends this paragraph of the letter by saying, my father's dying injunction had forbidden my uncle to allow me to embark on a seafaring life. So a couple of important things are going on here for you as a reader that is embedded all the way through the book, and maybe we can come to some agreement about this. Okay, y'all, how far are you willing to go? So in terms of the inestimable benefits to mankind, like how would you identify that? What are some of the inestimable benefits of mankind? That Yeah, or to mankind. Very good. Name one. No, you can just tell me what do you think is of inestimable value to humankind since the 18th century? What? Comfort? How? Oh. Okay, good. What other things have happened in say the universe of science that you would say has given us comfort as humans? Plastic. Good. Penicillin, number one. Always people say number one, penicillin. What else? Electricity, pretty good. So it goes part of the central question of this novel is creation, creator. How far are we willing to go? In other words, is Walton trying to set himself up as the hero? Like, look what I can do. Columbus did the same thing, P.S. On his third voyage, he still hadn't found anything that would make money. So he writes this whole thing about how, P.S., pretty sure I discovered the Garden of Eden. Here's how it's shaped, which was weird. And everything is beautiful and plush. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. Do you admire Walton's ambition? So the question becomes, and it's a really hard question. If science, as it's sort of, and part of the reason this novel is so important is because it's set within this period when electricity is kind of taking off. Does anybody want to not have electricity in Nashville next week? Right? And then you get into even harder questions, right? Because I can name all the inventions that have had made our lives more comfortable. But then we can spend another hour talking about, yeah, but this is problematic. Maybe we've gone too far. What does that mean for creation and creator? So let me backpedal because this book also has a subtitle. What is it? Oh, this is sad. The Modern Prometheus. And who is that? Now, I know some of y'all learned that. So, according to the way we are usually taught the myth, what Prometheus does is steal fire from the gods. Once again, the big boss, Zeus, says, don't do this. But Prometheus is like, but look what I can do. Big fan of fire. But what happens to Prometheus? Right. He's sentenced to some kind of eternal punishment where every day he's chained to a rock and some bird comes down and picks at his liver all day. Agony, suffering, agony, suffering, suffering. Later, Hercules saves him, but it's fine. Now, why do you think Shelley would put modern Prometheus? Why not just Frankenstein? Good enough. Why? Let me ask you this. Did you learn this in eighth grade? Why did Zeus punish Prometheus? Okay. Okay. So brilliant answer. Number one, he overstepped his bounds. And then what was the last thing you said? Beautiful. There's no compassion. In other words, she's setting up the exact same story with the myth. And then the question for you as a reader is, what are the boundaries? Like, so many of the qualities of Walton are qualities that seem admirable. He's ambitious. He wants to do something for all of humanity. He's trying to find this, you know, route that's going to save everybody time and money, and it's just going to just be good, good, good. Do what? Why? What do you mean? Oh. So that becomes a question. Is this about self-gratification? Beautiful. Then keep in your mind, is he the hero? Or is he making himself the hero? And we have to get through before we can decide, but I'm just setting up the question. So, what are the boundaries? Who is supposed to be in charge of the boundaries? Like, what are you willing to support and not support in terms of creation? Are there boundaries? There's no book to tell us. Oh no, Guy, I think there might be. Pastor, are there boundaries? And what would some of those be? Oh, so one of the things that's super fun for me right now is this whole idea of why are we doing Frankenstein in Sunday school? Which, P.S., is the question my husband asked last night. And then sadly, he had to hear why. Um, here's that they really don't. That's a signal for my husband is Pentecostal and his brother is the pastor. Sue has questions. It doesn't go well. My husband spends a lot of time in church doing the thing we all did as parents. You know, the seatbelt thing you do with your child when you think there's going to be a bump and you put that arm out. He does that to me a lot in church, which means don't talk. So, yes, I mean, the huge issue in this novel is creation. Who's in charge? What are the boundaries? And it's way harder than just going, yeah, you don't play God. We've been playing God from the get-go, haven't we? We can start in ancient myth and we can go up to today. But then how do we live with it as a culture? How do we live with that? Look at all our stuff. I'm so happy we have air conditioning. I can't even tell you. Right. Or we say this, which is the Pentecostal answer. God gave us the faculties to use to make all of these things, to make all of these discoveries. But then I think part of what we're sort of getting to is, what are the responsibilities to that for you individually and us as a culture? If it's just driven by dreams and self-gratification and ambition, on the one hand, we don't like those words. But on the other hand, do you have to have that for us to have stuff? And then what are the boundaries? What if it is a quest for money? I am willing to pay for the air conditioning. The electric bill doubles. Do you see what I mean? I'm okay with someone having that money because I don't like it. I don't like the heat. I'm okay with it. But then we get into really uncomfortable questions, which is why we're in church. Well, what about life? The creation of life. So the other thing that's embedded in this story really quickly is this search for the spark of life. Like, we can make anything and do anything, but we still haven't quite figured out, how do we make life? Or have we? And this is when students get really uncomfortable, especially at a Christian college, because I'll say, what are the boundaries? And they'll say, you don't fool around with life. And then I'll go, well, I hope this doesn't happen, but what if in 10 years, all you want more than anything in the world is a baby, and you can't make one by yourself or even with a partner? Oh man. And you watch them go, ew, right? Or AI. Either they fully embrace it, or they think that their lives are hurtling towards apocalypse. We're not going to have jobs. AI is going to take over the universe. It's going to be us versus them, the robots. How far is too far? And what does playing God mean? We could do an hour on that, right? What does playing God mean? Like, where's the edge? Where's the line? And Shelley's asking this question, and she's asking this question as someone who is fascinated by these questions, but also as a mother who is losing children rapidly. How do we fix this? What do we do? So I want you to keep in mind the things that Walton is telling you, that he then tells you how he was a failed poet. And then he also tells you how much he has suffered. And now, dear Margaret, I do not deserve to accomplish some great purpose. My life might have been passed in ease and luxury, but I preferred glory to every enticement that wealth placed in my path. My courage and my resolution is firm, but my hopes fluctuate and my spirits are often depressed. So he tells you at the beginning, I want glory. Is that the line? Is the self-gratification part the line? What are our responsibilities as humans in the universe? And then he finally gets to see, and he finds this guy who is floating around, and he's practically frozen to death. and he brings them on board. The other thing, and I have to point this out because it's going to become super important, is Walton says, I've got money, I've got a boat, I've got a crew, I'm going to get this fame and fortune, but there's one thing really missing in my life. What is it? Do you know? Friendship. What did you make of that? Well, I think what you're saying is vanity. It, it's also very romantic, right? So it's very Lord Byron-y. Oh, I have all things but real friendship. Is it? See, this is why I love at school when I say I love you, I always have to go in a completely appropriate way. And remember, like this is backstory, but she's hanging out with like the three smartest men in the world. And she's the only one who comes up with the story. So there's a lot of stuff about men here. But at the same time, there's a lot about women, mothers and fathers. But I want to put that in your head. This, I've got to have someone, because you're going to hear that resonate over and over again. And is that then part and parcel of this essential question about creation and our responsibility? Is there something connected to communion, community, and what responsibilities we have to each other and other people, and especially maybe people not like us? Because that's what Victor is going to bring into the party. So he picks Victor up. This sets up the question for you to answer later. Are we eventually going to say, you know what? The hero of this book is Walton? Because he does not come off well at the beginning, does he? Is he a hero, a villain, or is he a good Samaritan? That's churchy. Yes? Like he's on this, what seems to be singular mission, and he picks up a frozen guy. Yes. Very good. So he gets on the journey, finds Victor. Can we say then that Walton is a Promethean kind of character trying to test or go beyond the boundaries of nature? Full stop. Victor, how does he come off to you? Who is he? Like, what is his deal? Who is he? Okay, I love that. That's the story of my life as a teacher. Monomania is such a good word. Because on the one hand, we're not supposed to do this. Yes? Obsessive, focus, um, reaching, having one. I mean, it's Captain Ahab, it's Moby Dick, right? Thomas Sutton, Absalom, Absalom. But at the same time, do we need this? Do some people need this? How is it that we didn't have that kind of focus? Part of what is so great when you start to get Victor's story is you watch how much time goes into constructing this creature. He tries over and over and over again. He's robbing graves to find body parts to figure out how can this go. Now, I want to talk about Victor as a doppelganger before we run out of time. Doppelganger means double. So look at this side, and then let's talk about Victor. What is Victor after? What's his goal? What's his goal? What's the goal here for him as a young man? The look at you. That's exactly right. Oh my gosh. I love everything. So Victor is this guy who is born into a privileged family. And for a big chunk of the first part of his story, because once he warms up, if it comes back from death, and I'm winking because resurrection plays a role in this novel. He's revived by Walton, and he starts telling his story. And this big chunk of the story where we're like, 30 pages in going, can we get to the monster part? No. Because the first giant chunk, and this is super important, is about his childhood. What kind of childhood did he have? Nearly perfect. What? Well,
we might have the other mom narrate. I don't know if it's perfect cow. Got Dom and some skip. That's the thing, Chris. Yeah. He's got a different. Dom also sometimes thinks I don't have a strength to hold it all together.
but listen, he emphatically says, oh my gosh, my parents were perfect. Except, and I want you to keep in your head how many times Victor says, except he, has this really great childhood. His mother is angelic. She's the caregiver. She brings in Elizabeth. Their life is grand. He gets really interested in books. What's his father's response to the books he's interested in? That is garbage. And when he starts reading, the books he's attracted to are all books about magic and alchemy. But part of what he reads about is this whole idea of, the Grail legend, right? Like he's looking for the principle of life. And look what I could do with that. Look what I could do for all of humanity. They will love and worship me. But his father said, son, that's trash. And Victor comes back and goes, parents, he shouldn't have just blown me off. He should have explained why this is crappy reading. And maybe I wouldn't have gotten into all of this trouble. And then you go, so not perfect. Then what happens to his mother? She dies. And she dies because she can't stop herself from going near a sick.
And the day, he has a portrait of
Yeah.
is when she that's like helping her mom or dad, I don't know. Her dad. That's the portrait we have of mom in the house. That's mom's son.
Yeah. So I set this up last week and I'll set you up for next time. So on the one hand, men, 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 men. But on the other hand, men, who actually does most of the creating of life? I mean, I'm giving God, but let's get real. Here's what I want you to think about for next week, because I will come back to Victor and then move to the creature. This book has so much about parenthood, not just fathering, but mothering. The other thing is, so many critics now are saying it's a book about grieving because Victor doesn't really leave until the death of the mother. That mother he adored, who he only has glorious things to say. And he's depressed and he's lonely, but he's still going to go to college and study science. But immediately he realizes they're not going to teach me what I want. But then he gets really super good. So good, he far surpasses all the other students and decides, I'm going for it. I'm going to create life. It does not go well. So if you have finished with volume 1, move forward. If you haven't started, I don't even care if you skip the letters. Read Victor's story because there's so much stuff there. Then we'll get to the creature. Because he's the creator of life as well, Victor. He's also maybe pushing boundaries. Why is Frankenstein so ugly? That's going to be your question for next week. Why is he so ugly? He picked the single most beautiful features of every human he could find. And now he's horrified. I don't know what you're going to do with it. There's a lot in this book. We can do it. Yeah, it's the worst. It's from Boris Karloff. Yeah. Yes. That's another huge disappointment for students when they go, wait, he looks like a giant human? Yes, he does. No, no. And it's, but there are later editions. You can just Google images where people have actually artists, there are covers of different editions where people actually try to capture based on the parts he picks, how he looks. No, all of our ideas about Frankenstein come from Boris Karloff because that's way more fun than going, okay, what's your responsibility here, people? Right? Yeah, that's not Frankenstein. All right. So what's your job? Enjoy all of the amenities of creation. But at the same time, what is going on in this book? What is it about? And why is the creature so ugly? Got it? All right, go to church. All right, you guys, thank you. Have a great week.